Good morning. How the devil are you all doing this fine day? I hope you're well and rested. I'm excited today to say that today's show is going to be just a little bit different because for the first time since we switched up the look of the show, we have a guest. Not just any guest. The guest is none other than Rob Oliver, the man who spawned the Plantworx Exhibition. If you can spawn an exhibition. Plantworx has been away for 4 years now, but in just 47 days, it returns. And it returns with a whole host of new features that will make this Plantworx bigger and better than any that have gone before. We now just need the weather to play ball and shine down on the righteous. Fingers crossed. So please, given that we have Mr. Plantworx joining us a little bit later in the show, can I please ask you for some Plantworx related questions in the chat? We already had a couple through from our friend Gary Muirhead, but if you've got any more, please ask away. Now, without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro and get this show on the road. I can't even bring myself to watch that intro anymore. How vain am I? So many photographs of me. It is Thursday, the 26th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Volvo moves mountains. Magni TH shows off its latest generation cab, and Multi-One looks set to spark interest in electric machines at next week's SaMoTer. Plus, as I've already mentioned, we have an exclusive and live interview with Mr. Rob Oliver of the Plantworx Construction Exhibition. We'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, let's trawl back through the mists of time to see what happened, well, what was happening on this day in history. On this day in 1840, the foundation stone for the Palace of Westminster was laid by the wife of the architect Charles Barry. In 1940, Heinrich Himmler ordered the establishment of the Auschwitz concentration camp. I'd like to think that he's still burning in hell as a result. In 1956, Rocky Marciano retired from boxing undefeated. On this day in 1982, US President Ronald Reagan was shot by John Hinckley in a failed assassination attempt. 2005, the Airbus A380 Super Jumbo Jet made its maiden flight from Toulouse in France, and on this day in 2020, the global death toll from COVID-19 passed the 3 million mark. I honestly remember stopping work at 5 o'clock every evening to watch the news for the latest UK death toll. Can you believe we all lived through that? Unbelievable. Lots of questions coming through for our guest, Rob Oliver. We'll get to him a bit later on. But first, we need to do this. Some equipment moves earth, some moves muck. But Volvo moves mountains.
Im Zusammenhang mit dem Neubau der Schildhornbahn sind wir hier beauftragt worden, Aushubarbeiten und Betonierarbeiten zu vollbringen. Der Bagger hat die Aufgabe, der gesprengte Fels, das Schuttmaterial wegzuräumen und zu verladen, weil wir eigentlich das Material nicht über die Kante liegen lassen dürfen, sondern wir müssen das Ganze an den vorbestimmten Ort transportieren. Wir haben uns überlegt, dass wir einen Bagger brauchen, den wir fliegen können. Das war eine Grundvoraussetzung. Das Gewicht durfte nicht zu groß sein und auch die Fläche. Wir arbeiten auf sehr engem Raum und dann war es auch wichtig, dass die Fläche nicht zu groß war, die wir bedecken. Und dann war diese 2,5 Tonnen Lösung eigentlich die beste Lösung für uns. In den Bergen haben wir das Problem, wenn wir mit Diesel arbeiten, dass wir Probleme haben, die Dieselmotoren zu starten aufgrund der Kälte und der dünnen Luft. Und da bietet sich natürlich eine elektrische Version an, weil die da keine Probleme hat. Zusätzlich ist es sicher die Nachhaltigkeit vom Ganzen. und auch das Nichtvorhandensein der Abgase. Auch für die Leute, die da arbeiten, Dieselmotoren, die in der Höhe arbeiten, haben sehr starken Dieselrauch und das möchten wir unseren Arbeitern eigentlich nicht antun. Wir laden hier einerseits über die normale Energieversorgung, Steckdose, und haben auch die Möglichkeit, über ein Schnellladegerät, wenn wir mal den Notfall haben, das zu betreiben oder wieder zu laden, so muss ich das sagen. Es gibt keinen anderen Anbieter in dieser Gewichtsklasse und ich denke, das Produkt ist gut und zuverlässig. Bei uns ist zum Bauen auch Nachhaltigkeit ein sehr großes Thema.
I make no apology for the fact that was not in English. That was just too good to allow a bit of foreign language to stand in the way. Let's get this, because Rob Oliver is waiting in the green room. Before we get our very special guest onto the show to talk about one exhibition, we're going to make a very quick detour to look at another. As you know, I'm off to Italy on Monday to feast upon the equipment on display in Verona at the latest SaMoTer fair. I'm looking forward to catching up with some of the very best Italian manufacturers while I'm there. Manufacturers like this one. And we will be back with another SaMoTer preview right after this one.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Right, Rob Oliver is beginning to fidget backstage, so I'm going to make this one nice and quick. This year's SaMoTer fair will have a very futuristic feel to it. I'm looking forward to catching up on the latest kit in the digital worksite and to seeing the very latest tech that is on display at the SaMoTer lab. I'm also looking forward to seeing some hot new electric equipment as well. Yeah, not long now. I've found my passport, which is good. I've got my spare toothbrush packed and I'm almost ready to fly. But for now, I'm going to be staying a bit closer to home because we're going to be right back with Rob Oliver right after this. Now, at this point in proceedings, I would normally be gearing up for my gripe of the day, but instead of looking at the negatives today, I thought we would accentuate the positives. The Plantworx exhibition is now just 47 days away. The Great British Plant Fest will throw open its doors in precisely 1 month, 2 weeks, and 3 days. Or, if you want to be really precise, that's 1,128 hours. Now, the show returns after a 4-year hiatus, and it is returning with a bang. There are more than 300 exhibitors, but there are also a number of new features and highlights. To tell us about them, I'm delighted to welcome Rob Oliver onto the show in just a second. But while I'm dragging him away from the free coffee and biscuits in our green room, here's a very quick reminder of what Plantworx is all about. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Mark, and thanks so much for your hospitality here in the green room. Much appreciated. Also, I see you brought your security dog to look after me while we're here. So,
yeah, it looks very alert, I have to say.
It's nice to see pictures of SaMoTer. I haven't been there for many, many years. So, but could you bring me back a bottle of limoncello, please? It's great in that area.
Limoncello and some sunshine, maybe?
Yes, please. The latter, very important.
Right. You and I haven't spoken for quite some time. In fact, I'm fairly sure you weren't an MBE the last time I spoke, and now you are. You may actually be our first MBE guest.
Well, unless you ever interviewed my dear wife Joanna, because she's got one of those as well. But I'm a bit disappointed because the King hasn't actually rang me up to give me the gong yet. But so I'm waiting for the date when we can get back together again and talk about old times.
My understanding is he's quite busy at the moment. There's something going on, isn't there?
It's called extra bank holidays. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Okay. So I've already given Plantworx the big build up, but he's going to be very different this time, isn't it? One of the things that really caught my eye was this big ideas thing that you have. I'm full of big ideas. None of them good, but I'm full of big ideas. What is the idea behind big ideas?
Yeah, it's something actually that we've seen at one or two other shows as well, which is just an opportunity for inventors and new entrepreneurs, people maybe who haven't yet got a foothold into the particular industry, to come along at low cost to show what they're working on. And we've had a good response from that. And actually some of the bigger project people that we work with, like HS2 and the National Highways, are getting behind that too, because they like everyone, want to encourage innovation on construction sites. So we'll probably have about a dozen different companies. When you come to the show, that will be there just opposite the entrance number 1. And there's some quite interesting things coming through. I can't talk too much about them at the moment, but when we put the full publicity out, I think you'll be quite impressed as to who we've unearthed as the entrepreneurs of the future.
Now, we've obviously been talking about technology to a degree there, and technology is very much, it's one of the themes of SaMoTer, as you've rightly said, but it's also one of the themes of your show as well. Get connected and the simulation zone. I know what the simulation zone looks like because I've seen one before, but what's that all about?
Yeah, it's an interesting move because, as you said in your intro, we haven't been around for 4 years for obvious reasons, and it's really interesting how things have moved on in the marketplace, because I think we're getting a little bit more like the automotive sector with the car people, because I was reading a piece the other day, and what they're saying is that people are in terms of selecting cars, people are moving away from selection based on the hardware to selection based on the software. And I think that's what we're seeing in our industry now. We're always a little bit behind automotive, but things are percolating through. So what we're doing in the Get Connected zone is that we have 2 areas, one and the outside area, which is the middle of the speedway track, which is on the site that we use at Peterborough. So that's the outside area. And then we have another inside area, and we're connecting the inside to the outside. And we've had some good support from our friends at Plantworx there, who are allowing us to make the connection between the inside and outside. so that people who come to the inside area can watch the machines being demonstrated outside, but more importantly, can look at the vital information which is being relayed from outside to inside in terms of the efficiency and the key metrics of the machines that are being used. Last time we were talking about this, but couldn't demonstrate. This time we can actually demonstrate how these things work. So we're quite excited by that. And again, we've had a really good uptake, and we think that will be just that additional attraction to the show, rather than talking about technology, showing technology in action.
It's interesting you mentioned that point about the automotive sector. I having written about plant and equipment for the last 30 plus years, I've always thought that we were about somewhere between 5 and 10 years behind the automotive sector. I get the impression that that is really narrowed. In fact, some of the stuff that we're doing in the plant sector is pretty much, we're doing it at the same time, if not slightly ahead of the automotive sector. There really is some proper innovation going on here, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's interesting, and you're right, because also we always said that we were behind the agricultural sector too in terms of the telematics and stuff that they do. But I think time has speeded up a little bit in the 4 years that we've been away as Plantworx.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was going to throw that one up because one of your team has just said, "Morning, Rob." Good morning, Lou. Thank you very much.
Louise, yes, she was on duty at 6:30 this morning dealing with some Plantworx stuff. So I don't know whether we can actually pay her overtime bill, but
I wouldn't worry about it. No, knowing Lou, she's only about an hour away from the first gin, so it shouldn't really be a problem. One of the other big draws, obviously, we've got a bunch of operators in our midst as we're speaking. We now have an operator challenge at the show as well. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. You've done that in conjunction. What is the story of the operator challenge?
Yes, a lot of people I think will know Dale Hawkins, who runs Awesome Excavators, and he came up with this idea of a challenge for operators at any skill level. And it's a timed challenge, and I think from memory, I think there are 9 different challenges all set out in a row. There, we've had some really good sponsorship for that area too. So if you're interested in taking part, you can join via the Plantworx website or the Awesome Excavators website. But also don't forget to register with us so you get your badge to come into the show. And if you're someone that's motivated not just by the achievement of winning something, but by the achievement of having something valuable to win, I think there's something like a £3,000 holiday prize up for grabs for the winner, plus some other prizes for runners up. So if you're wondering where to go on holiday this year and you know a little bit about operating duties, get registered, come along, you never know.
I wish I was a good enough operator to qualify, but I'm clearly not.
I've never been a proper operator, but I've been practicing actually a little bit, so because I haven't had a holiday for a while, so I'm going to have a go.
I have just posted a link to the registration in the chat there as well. One of the questions that came up when I mentioned the fact that you were going to be on the show yesterday was the fact that the East of England showground is this presumably is the final outing for both Plantworx and for FutureWorks as well.
Well, it is in the current form, because when we moved to East of England, we signed up for a 3-show deal because we knew that that in the background there were plans to redevelop the site, and of course we missed the second show in our cycle because of COVID. So this is the last one under that particular deal, and in a way we can't really complain about being turfed out because it's going to be turned into a vast construction site. So they're going to build several hundred homes on the site where we are now, which is a shame because we enjoyed our time there. And as you say, we put FutureWorks in there last year. But what we can say is that we've got some quite exciting venues in mind for FutureWorks for next year, which we're planning. And similarly, we're not going to shut up shop. So plans for Plantworx 25 are being advanced. And we're also be consulting with some of the key exhibitors in terms of our selection for the next venue. We have been a little bit peripatetic because people with long memories will know we started at Stoneleigh Park in 2015, moved to Bruntingthorpe Airfield, and then found our way to the East of England showground. So we're used to packing up our tents and moving on to the next venue.
I under normal circumstances, I would throw this open to the chat and see what everybody else thought about where it should be. But I can tell you that we are heavily Scottish and Welsh biased here, so I don't want to do that. We've had some questions in from the chat. We had one from Gary Muirhead before we started. Will the demonstrations be live streamed for non-attendees?
I think some of the companies themselves may have some plans to do that. We also have our friends from the wider construction collective coming along. So Peter Haddett will be streaming some material. But what we'll do, when we have those confirmed, we'll pop those up on the website so you can see what opportunities you have to see things live from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah,
or your
absolutely.
own office, actually, if you're pretty busy.
And we will certainly be doing that via this show and also via our Diggers and Dozers channel as well. It seems that the Midlands is the popular choice. It's a future show going to be South UK or Midlands. Ken Hatcher has just said middle of the country, maybe Birmingham area, but Jim Turner is being a whole lot more specific, and I think he's being quite selfish about this. Please say you're moving to Newark. It's only up the road from me. That's not how exhibitions generally work, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, we know the Newark showground, and if I was choosing, if it was entirely my choice, and there was a ready venue, I'd make it around Birmingham. That's my original homeland was around there in Warwickshire, so it makes sense. And we've always said that we wanted the show to be within an easy reaching distance with most of the industry, and of course somewhere in the middle of the country meets that criteria.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say a very quick good morning to Justin Carrigan, who is here. Justin, obviously, Dale Hawkins' colleague over at Awesome Earth Movers. We've had this one isn't so much a question as a suggestion. This is Gary Muirhead again, who has said, why don't you charge £1 for entry and then donate the proceeds to charity?
Do you know, that's actually crossed my mind before, because as you know, there are some really good charities that have been active. We all know the Lighthouse Club. We know what support's going into helping the situation in Ukraine, and we've always had a tradition in our sector where entry to shows are free. But I don't think we can necessarily get everyone to contribute. But what we will be doing is partnering with one of the charities anyway to raise some money. And I think Gary's suggestion is a sound one, really, because most of us won't miss a pound from our pocket. And that would raise several £1,000s for a good cause.
I think the only issue with that is I said this on the show the other day. I've done a couple of holidays now and my trip to ConExpo with no cash. Nobody carries cash anymore, do they?
You obviously don't do the shopping at the supermarket then, Mark, because sometimes you need a pound coin to release the
I've got one of those things that you hang on your keyring. I'm way more switched on than that. I'm into technology, me. Got another comment here from our friend Steve Williamson, who unfortunately isn't going to be at the show. Be interested to know more on the influencer posts. I saw Plantworx post on certain individuals that have agents. What about the others that are going to be there that are demo driving and have done it worldwide? I think he's referring specifically to his sidekick, Ed Butler. There is going to be a big influencer presence there. Obviously, there are those that are working through an agent, but there are plenty of others there as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's a whole new world to me when we looked at the opportunities to bring some real life in-person influencers along to the show. And obviously we took some advice and were approached by different people to do that. If you have any particular contacts or particular favourites you think could be promoted at the show, then contact us, because we're open to everyone. And it's when we were planning for this event, we've given far more attention to social media channels of all sorts than we did at any of the previous shows, because looking at the numbers of different followers for different influencers, it's pretty impressive. And we can't all live in a remote digital world where we don't turn up to things. So I'm pretty keen to bring people together physically for this one and meet some of the stars in person.
No, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you now. One to look at is Ed
Like
Butler
yourself,
and
Mark.
Steve
I would
Wilson's.
say as a great influence.
Well,
for yourself.
I was going to say myself, but unfortunately, I'm outgunned by the fellow that sat next door to me, my son, who is he's gonna break the 100,000 on YouTube in the next couple of days. He's already at nearly 400,000 on Instagram. He blows me way out of the water. We've mentioned charities, and Lou has just reminded us Andy's Man Club is going to be at the show, and we're supporting the Plant Aid Hire Alliance as well, which obviously is Ukrainian based as well. Just going back to the influencers thing, and I've got Lou again. If other influencers want to get in touch, we would love to promote your presence at the show. Lou, I will put you in touch with Ed Butler after the show because he is going to be there. He'll be on the Auger Talk stand along with Kinsoffer as well. So I'll put the two of you in touch as well.
Great.
I think, I guess I have one last question. Obviously, the show has shifted back a little bit in the calendar. Have you placed the order for the weather yet?
Yes, that's all done. It's we were only able to get a mixed bag of weather to order, and the people that we're getting it from couldn't stipulate particular days. We had to sort of book for a whole month. But we're hopeful that the proportion of sunshine to rain means that sunshine will be well up the leaderboard this time around.
I may just take a sunbed just to be absolutely sure. And I'm going to throw up one last question here from our friend Gary Muirhead, who says, "Nice jacket, Rob. Have you got one up for grabs as a prize giveaway? I would imagine those are very, very exclusive."
This actually is either from the last show or the one before, and it's been sitting in my locker, I say, for 4 years before it's come out. And we think this is the only one in existence. But I'm very happy to put it up. Anyone who wants to bid on it for charity, and I'll just have to be a little bit colder.
We have had another question here from Dan Cullen as well. Will people be able to turn up and actually operate machines?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, you know that there's my phone ringing in the background there, just distracted me. You know that the history of the show, going back to when SED was alive and whatever, that the digging and the operation of the machines was a key part, and that's still a key part of Plantworx. So we've sold out the different operating areas of the show, and you'll need to have the relevant ticket. But you can see what's new and have a go.
I'm going to throw in one final question of my own, and it's just really just opening the floor for you, really. I know why I'm going to Plantworx. I know why everybody else is going to Plantworx. But in one sentence, why should people give up their time and go to Plantworx this time around?
It's the great opportunity to bring people together. Sometimes we live too much in the virtual world, and we need to be part of our great industry, which is actually helping to prop up the British economy at the moment. And it's about bringing people together. It's about seeing new things, new ideas, and it's also talking to people from different parts of the industry and finding out how and really celebrating the enjoyment that we get from our industry. And as Louise says, who's always writing my script for me, just put up, it's a one-stop shop for construction. So looking forward to see you there.
She's live script writing. I can't believe it. And we managed to do
all I have to do is sit here and read what comes up on the screen there, Mark. It's brilliant.
I'm going. Here we are. Is Dan Cullen. His reason for going to Plantworx. I'm going to meet the fantastic Mark Anthony. Good grief. And other guys in the industry. There are other guys in the industry, bizarrely. Rob, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I can't believe we managed to do all of that without actually mentioning the football last night.
Well, and I was very pleased to see you today, because you've done over 300 shows, and I felt sure you were going to take over from another West Ham supporter that was doing the Late Show and has just finished that in the States. So you're not the new James Corden after all, but keep up the good work.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. It's actually 500 shows, not 300. It's 500.
Is it?
And I'd need to put on just a little bit of weight to take over from James Corden, but that's a whole other story. Rob, I look forward. If I don't see you before, I will see you on the opening day of Plantworx.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. Cheers.
All the best. See you soon. And there we are. That is Plantworx. Plantworx is 47 days away. Now, we have just one more thing that I do need to touch on before we go about our daily business. Tomorrow marks Workers' Memorial Day, and I've recorded a new video and audio podcast with the widow of a demolition worker killed at the Teamswork facility back in 2019, way up in Redcar. A lot of what we do here on this show is frivolous and disposable. Tomorrow's fish and chip wrapper, but this one actually is quite important. So I'd like to call upon all of you to help me spread it far and wide. I'm going to try and find a suitable clip. The actual interview is about 40 minutes long, so it is proper long form. But I'm going to try and find a minute or two from the interview that I can play on tomorrow's show. And I'll also be sharing a link as well, so that you can go and listen or watch the entire thing. So I really would, I'm throwing myself upon your mercy. I'd love for you to share the video and the audio with anyone that you think might enjoy it. Enjoy is probably the wrong word, but you get the idea. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I know there's been a lot of chat and I didn't get through all of the questions for Rob Oliver, but I will go back and recap those in just a moment. But I'm going to roll no, I'm not going to roll an outro. I'm going to leap it gazelle. Excuse me. I'm going to leap gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. If you have the inclination, I'll see you after this for what is now known as the Craic. But I do need to have a final word from our sponsors. Right, now I think, be able to play a thing over the top of that. There we are. I'm going to switch the layout. Those are all the things that you may well need to know. I've also got some... I'm going back to the new music again today. Let's go with one of those. Hopefully you can hear that. Very 80s inspired. Thank you very much indeed for that, Dan. That was a great chat with Rob. Always is a great chat with Rob. For those of you that aren't aware, obviously Rob and I share a passion for West Ham. We lost to Liverpool last night, but we did score the best goal and we played very well. So I was quite comfortable mentioning it. Now, who was in the chat? Ken Hatcher, fresh back from the Welsh construction show yesterday. I saw some of your photographs there, Ken. How was it? Was it a good show? Lots of people, lots of business being done. Love to hear from you. Steve Williamson. Morning, Steve. Thank you for joining us, and thank you also for reminding us all that there are some other influencers that will be at the show. Plantworx show. I only found out yesterday, and I have to confess, this is my own stupidity. I only found out yesterday purely by accident that Ed Butler is going to be there. Obviously, Ed is half of the dynamic duo. He is going to be there on the Auger Talk Kinsoffer stand. Look forward to catching up with Ed doing his thing. For those of you that haven't seen Ed and Steve doing their thing at Bauma or Conexpo, stop everything. When you get to Plantworx, go find Auger Talk, and you can thank me later. The pair of them, even individually, put on a fantastic show, so go and make sure you see that as well. There is Lou Carney. Lou, thank you very much indeed for getting Rob on the show. It was a great idea to have him along, and I'm very grateful that he was able to make it. Gary Muirhead. Gary, thank you very much indeed for being here. Thank you also for sending us some questions ahead of time. Can always rely on you to do that. He says, good morning, Mark. Good morning, gang. Good morning, Plantworx. And welcome. Welcome indeed. Who else have we got here? Angela from Plantworx. One of the nicest people you're ever likely to meet. Morning, Angela. Thank you very much indeed for being here and cheerleading in the background while Rob did his thing. Good of you to be here, and look forward to seeing you at Plantworx as well. Dan Cullen is in the house, and the Plantworx team are just apparently they've just decided to come to this show and hang out and say hello to each other. That's fine. That's absolutely fine by me. Kerry Jones is in the house. Morning, Kerry. I hope you're fit and well, my friend. I think we addressed this one. Will there be a chance to operate a machine at Plantworx? Yes. You need to arrive armed with cards, tickets, presumably PPE as well. I don't know the answer to that, but I would imagine you need to come fully loaded. And yes, there will be opportunities to get behind the levers. I would imagine that's going to be quite popular. I would like to think there'll be a queue. If there is a queue, good, because it means people are keen to take part. Dan Cullen says, I've been interested in doing a test drive on different brands. Yeah, listen, we used to do that back in my old contract journal days. We used to have our dig-ins take half a dozen or possibly even a dozen of the same size machine, mini excavators, backhoe loaders, wheel loaders, park them all side by side and just get operating on all of them and then come out. Unfortunately, at the time, we were looking at it from an advertising perspective, and we seemed to make friends with one brand and upset another half a dozen. Didn't go down well with their advertising department, but that is the way of the world. Al Grierson is here as well. Morning, Al. Unfortunately, Al won't be able to make it to Plantworx because Luxembourg is quite a long commute from the East of England showground. But don't worry, Al, I'll be bringing you the very best of the show here and on our YouTube channel as well. I tossed that Volvo video about. I realised it was done in German, and I realised German is not first language for most people. I think Al is fluent. I believe Al is fluent in German, but I just decided, frankly, that video was so good to look at, I thought we'd make do. I think the cold environment would affect the machine. I would imagine the cold environment... Oh, excuse me, that coffee is not agreeing with me at all. I would imagine the cold would affect it. I also wondered, obviously that's an electric machine, so you don't have to worry about aspiration of engines. But I would imagine working at that altitude with a diesel machine, would that not cough and splutter just a bit, the lack of aspiration? There are people that know way more about such things in the chat. If you have any thoughts on that. There's Jim Turner. Morning, Jim. I did my best to put an order in for Plantworx to move to Newark, if only so that you and I can get to actually meet at long last. We shall see. We shall see where that all pans out. I think this relates to a Magni. Impressive looking factory. Yeah, it certainly is. Looking forward to catching up with the Magni team next week. And as he rightly says, impressive looking telehandler as well. That's the main part of it as well. That's a belter vid of the Magni. Yeah, I totally agree. That Volvo mini digger sounds like a milk float. I wonder if I'd go home with that sound ringing in your ears. Do you know, bizarrely, I miss the sound of the milk float. And I realise this is a very, very specific memory. For those of a certain age, obviously, milk floats did make that noise. But does anyone remember the noise that milk floats made when it had snowed? They made a different... I don't know whether it was the snow absorbing the peaks and troughs of the sound wave, but they made a different noise. And man alive, I miss that sound. Wonder, is Magni an offshoot of Manitou? A lot of similarities. I'm guessing not. One is French, Manitou, and one is Italian, Magni. What can you do with a telehandler? It's a cab, some wheels and a boom. And sometimes they're both red. But as far as I know, no, there is no relationship. I'll be interested to know more on the influencer posts. I saw Plantworx post on certain individuals that have agents. What about the others that are going to be there? There's demo driving and have done it worldwide. I didn't get too uptight about this because obviously we are working with the fine folks at Plantworx. But I listen, Steve, I know exactly where you're coming from. Obviously, there has been quite a lot of coverage about the fact that Amy Underwood, the digger girl, is going to be there. Lord Mark Kurt Mills is going to be there. Absolutely fine. No, I have no issue with that, and I wish them well. Hope to bump into the pair of them while we're there. But there are others. Me, Nick Drew, Peter Haddock, my son Fred, Ed Butler, and let me think. I think Ollie Guns is going. I think Ben Wade is going. Ben the operator is going. So there's a whole bunch that don't have that agent representation who are going to be there. I think they did get mentioned in dispatches, but I can't actually remember. Mark, good morning to you. Mark Whiting is in the house. Wait, he says, the loader can withstand blows from a baseball bat. Does that mean I can borrow large sums of money from suspicious guys with flat haircuts and badly fitting leather jackets? There's nothing to stop you doing that I'm not sure the loader is going to necessarily help, but listen, if that's your thing, borrow away, I say. And there are lots of people saying good morning to Rob. Great idea. What was the great idea? Was that the idea of collecting money for charity? Not entirely sure. Gary Muirhead is angling for the jacket. Sadly, it looks like it's going to be a raffle, not quite a raffle, but an auction job. So not sure that one's going to come together. Shows ought to be about innovation. I think increasingly they are. I've said this before, I will say it again. I came back from ConExpo 2020, and it was the first time it may have happened before, but it was the first time I really felt it. I came back from ConExpo 2020 with a notebook and a camera and SD cards and everything else full of innovation, but very, very little of it was actually metal. It was software, it was telematics, it was GPS, it was autonomy, robots, and all that kind of thing. That was the case in 2020. It was definitely the case at Bauma in 2022. It was definitely the case at ConExpo 2023. I expect SaMoTA next week to be precisely the same. They do have this SaMoTA lab. They've also got a digital work site there as well. And obviously, as we've just seen, Plantworx is following that lead. There will be lots and lots of simulators and all that kind of thing on display. And I have to say, I know Rob referred to them as awesome excavators, awesome earth movers, have partnered with the fine folks at Plantworx to bring some of that together. So hats off to them. I'm looking forward to seeing the very latest in tech. Well, that sounds good. Live link on the show day. Yeah, why not? Why not? We could. The ability exists. Obviously, Rob there referred to Peter Haddock. We will be there as well. Peter does a lot of stuff where he goes live, literally from stand to stand to stand. Make sure you follow him on LinkedIn, because that's where most of that will appear. We will be doing exactly the same, but my plan is to try and broadcast from the show almost like this, but possibly through the day, much the same as we did at FutureWorks. Just got to keep our fingers crossed for internet connectivity, but we'll be doing something. Don't worry about that. Let's have a look. Rattling through. Yes, if anybody has any question about where to register, there you are. There you will find the link in the chat. Make sure you do that ahead of time. It will save you several minutes when you arrive if you've already got your ticket. I'm sadly going to miss Plantworx. I think you have a good reason for missing Plantworx, though, Steve. Dan Cullen, Dale Hawkins will be the man to ask. Are you in the house, Dale? And silence came the reply. But if you want me to put you in touch with Dale, Dan, just let me know, and I will marry the two of you. Not exactly marry, but I'll put the two of you in touch and you can ask questions away. There is Jim Turner making his case for Newark. Justin Carrigan, a constant presence and a constant prize winner when we do our evening shows. Morning, Justin. Thank you very much indeed for being here. How's that little one of yours getting on? That's the important job of the day. I think lots of talk about the middle of the country. Having had quite a bit of experience with exhibitions, because I used to work for Contract Journal and Plant Managers Journal, who owned the SED exhibition of old, there is this kind of weird thing whereby the crowd that goes to an exhibition, by and large, and I don't mean completely, but the crowd kind of follows the presence or the location. So if you were to move the show, for example, move it to London, you would lose the top end of the country. Those from Manchester, Yorkshire, or certainly North Yorkshire, those from Scotland, Newcastle, would be less likely to make the journey. So if you can, Plantworx, if you're listening, if you can find somewhere around about the Birmingham area, obviously you'll have those coming down from above and those coming up from below. Midlands would be the ideal. Is a future show going to be South UK or Midlands? I'm praying for the Midlands. Stafford Showground too. Yeah, Stafford would not be bad at all. Jeff Pinion is in the house. Good morning, Mark, and all bit late for the show. Not a problem at all. Jeff, if you missed anything, and I don't believe you did, you can watch it and catch up. But thank you very much indeed for being here. Stafford Showground is a nice place too. I'm just trying to remember. I don't think I've ever been there. I can tell you now, I don't think he's in the chat, but Peter Haddock would be very, very pleased if that were the case, because he could probably go home at night. Good to see Plantworx doing their bit for charity as well. Andy's Man Club is going to be at the show, and we are supporting the Plant Aid Hire Alliance, which is, as I've already mentioned, working very hard to raise money for those displaced and affected by the conflict in Ukraine. Plenty of cash down the Royal Mint. I'm sure there is, but seriously, and I wasn't joking. I wasn't being pedantic. I've got one of those imitation pound coins on a keyring. So if I do go to the supermarket, that's what I use. I think there is probably a £5 note in the central console of my car. Can't guarantee that. There normally is, but literally, I mean, my wallet is here. It has no cash. It hasn't had cash in it since about 2020. The only time I have cash is when I go and get my hair cut and my beard done, which I did earlier this week in time for Verona. I'm going to be hanging out with Italians. Italians are just cool, so I need to look as good as I... It ain't going to get much better than this, let's be honest, but I needed to get the beard trimmed because I didn't want to look scruffy among all those all too handsome Italians. Ken Hatcher, I'd like to come, but it's a long drive, 220 miles. Yeah, unfortunately, Wales is quite away from everything, really, isn't it? What about operators getting test runs on a few machines to see and compare? Yep, that is possible. There will be a demonstration area. I think that needs to be made clear. And so it wouldn't be a case of, if you decide I want to test all the 8-tonners at the show, that ain't going to happen, because they won't be on the demo area. But you will have the opportunity to get behind the leaders. If other influencers want to get in touch, I'd love to promote your presence at the show. Lou, I'll drop you a line about Ed Butler. If any of my construction content creators club are in the house, I think Lou probably knows most of them, but if not, let me know, Lou. I'll be watching live from Dubai, obviously when the wife isn't watching. And you notice he said the word wife. Yes, by the time we get to Plantworx, Steve Williamson will be a happily married man. Advanced congratulations to Steve Williamson, and my deepest commiserations with the soon-to-be Mrs. Williamson, who I'm sure could have done a whole lot better. No, she couldn't. He's a smashing fella. What about jobs advertising, influencers for people looking for work? I don't know how that would work at an exhibition. I think your job, Dan, basically is to be there and meet as many people as you can. That would be my suggestion. Dan Cullen, yes, you can. Bring your operator ticket and fill your boots. Fill your boots, absolutely right. The one-stop shop for construction. A bit like this show, really. Sort of. Yes, I'm going to tell you now, Dan. He's not all he's cracked up to be. You know, he means well. And, you know, but he... As most people that have ever met me will tell you, I come across nice on screen, but I'm a bit of a dick, really. I don't want to build myself up and then disappoint. I'd rather disappoint in advance and for you to go away thinking, yeah, he was right. He really is a bit of a dick. Dan Cullen, that was great chat with Rob. Yeah, Rob is always good value, and not just because he's a West Ham fan. And yes, I did guess right. If you are planning to operate machines there, you do need your tickets, your cards, and your PPE, the correct PPE as well. I don't know why I've gone silent. Indeed, you've been really been selling the show. Annoyed that I can't come. I don't believe I'm muted. Where are you watching? On Facebook. Don't know what's going on there, to be honest. Yes, Lou currently says Lana is going to be there. Track class. Ben, the operator. Ollie Guns is going to be there. Peter Haddock, Nick Drew, Lloyd P. Who is Lloyd P? I don't know who that is. And Chris McGuinness, who is the biggest cheese among the cheese shop. Awesome Earth Movers, fantastic channel. If you don't already follow it, what the hell are you thinking of? Go and take a look. And obviously, subscribe to the bloody magazine as well, because it's awesome. I don't believe I just did that. It is awesome, and it's called Awesome Earth Movers. Go find it. I can't understand what influencers can achieve at these shows, as few don't work on building sites. So what do they influence? Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, Dan, but allow me to put you right. Of all of the people that Lou just named, there's only one. Actually, there are two that don't work on sites. Me and Fred, who's sat next door. But all of those operate equipment. I mean, Nick Drew does it from... Nick Drew is a retired plant operator, but he is now a blogger. Chris McGuinness is also a former operator. But all of the others, they are operators. That's exactly what they do. And what do they influence? That is, like beauty, it is in the eye of the beholder. Personally, my son's YouTube channel is great. His Instagram channel is even better. I love what Nick Drew does. I love what Peter Haddock does. I like what Amy Underwood does. I like all of these things. But if I were to say, hand on heart, which of the channels I find most influential, I'd pick Ollie Guns. Not the most massive channel by any means, but you know, he did one recently. He'd been out and he paid for this. It wasn't somebody paid him to do it. He paid for it. He got some of this tyre fill stuff and used it on his equipment fleet. And he took you through the process of buying it, installing it, and how it performed and everything else. If you are in the market for that kind of thing and you go to YouTube and you look for tyre fill, his should be the first thing that comes up, and you can make a genuine purchasing decision based upon what Ollie Guns has said. That, to my mind, is proper influence. Yes, please, Dale Hawkins. I will put you in touch. Angela at Plantworx says, listening. Good, I guess. Is that one of them metal wallets? No, Steve, it is... can I demonstrate that? It is a MagSafe for the back of my iPhone. Not a real one. I could have paid, I think it was 70 quid for the Apple branded one, but I went onto Amazon and found one for 20 quid, and it works very, very well. Modest proposal, Plantworx Luxembourg. I have a counter proposal, Al. How about you license the Plantworx brand and bring it to Luxembourg yourself? I don't know. As long as I get a coffee with Mr. Anthony and Miss Carney. Yes, well, Lou is definitely the person for the coffee because she's sat generally where the coffee is. My apologies, I should have known that. Beardy Excavator is our friend Lloyd. Yes, you're absolutely right. They influence looks and dancing, Dan. Yes, they do. Ollie is like the James Bond of construction. #posh. Yes, he is. He is. But he's posh. He's quite young. But the dude knows his shit, as they say. I don't know who they are, and I don't know why they would say it, but he does. He really knows his onions. So if you aren't following him already, go and have a look at Ollie Gunn's channel over on YouTube. You can thank me later. Yeah, Ollie really sells that JCB Mini and the Tilty 2, and since it's not brand cooperation, it's much more credible. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, in absolute truth, I mean, he has tried to reach out to some of the brands. He actually mentioned that, I think, on the interview that I did with him when we were talking about competence cards, and he'd reached out to a couple of brands. And unfortunately, and this is where I think the influencer thing is still finding its level, I think a couple of brands have taken a look at him and thought he's probably not big enough. In actual fact, I say this to everybody that's on our Construction Content Creators Club, you don't need to be huge. You really, really don't need to be huge. I would rather, I mean, Instagram, for example, I've got nearly 150,000 followers there, but I would rather have 1,000 that were really engaged than 10,000 that just turned up every once in a while. Much the same as we've got with this show. You know, the live audience for this isn't huge. It isn't. You know, it's a couple of hundred people when we're actually live. We get thousands more afterwards. But the people that I value the most are the ones that actually arrive here day in, day out, and that are engaged, and there's a toing and froing. going back to there you are. Dale Hawkins is here, and I didn't see him lurking in the background there, but good morning, Dale. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. You only need boots for the competition. Everything else will be provided on the day. Team Awesome Earth Movers think of everything. They really do. So thank you very much indeed for that. Ollie comes across as a dead sound fella. Yeah, he does. Who am I to judge? Was it the Schultz? Was it the Hugh Grant floppy hair? What did it for you, Lou? On second thoughts, don't answer that. I'd rather not know. And yes, Lou did meet him at the Executive Hire Show. He is a great guy. Yeah, really, really open and really keen to give his opinion on not just on this sort of stuff, but yeah, going back to my interview with him about competence cars. I think the interview came out at about half an hour. I think we spoke for about 3 hours because he's that much of an engaging person. Ollie Guns is a real life influence. No arsing about, no dancing, just real life working environment. There you are. A lot of influencers are cock. I'm gonna hope that he wasn't aiming that at me. Think they're better than the rest and say what they use is the best. Everything else is crap. That's not an influencer. You have to try everything. Be honest, be kind, and get on with others. Don't be stuck up. Yeah, absolutely right. But the one thing I will say, Steve, I think this industry, probably more than any other I've ever been involved with, can spot a fake at 100 paces. I think, I could come on here very easily. Do I have another? No, I don't. I could come on here very easily, put on a Liebherr hat, and tell you how great Liebherr was, and Liebherr are fantastic, and their machines are the BMW of the construction equipment world. I actually believe that's the case. I do think Liebherr makes some of the very best machines in the world. I do believe that they are an absolute premium brand. But A, I'm a journalist, so my opinion counts for absolutely nothing whatsoever. And B, if I did that on a regular basis, sooner or later you guys would go, he's on the payroll. They're paying him. And you would spot it. Whereas somebody like an Ollie Guns, bearing in mind, this is just the most recent example because I watched his video, it was last weekend. He's been out and he's invested whatever it was, I think it was about 400 quid actually, 400 quid of his own money to put this anti-puncture tyre fill in his equipment. He's been out and he's spent the money and he's installed it and he's tested it and he is speaking about it. That makes a whole lot more sense. And I think, as I've already said, people like Steve and Dan and people are far more likely to sit down and watch that and at the end of it think, he knows his stuff, and if he says that product's good, it's probably good, and if he says that product is bad, it's probably bad. That's influence to my mind. Jim Turner says, glad he got himself a 3CX. Definitely money well spent. He makes no bones about it. He is a JCB fan. He is very well looked after by his local dealer down in, I think he's in Hampshire, if from memory serves me correctly. His local dealer serves him very well. He's also a big fan of the old buy British thing, so why the hell not? There are many other influencers that have tens of thousands more followers than me, but I've shown it's not about the likes and follows, it's about who you are as a person, willing to teach others and assist and be open to everything and know how to have a bit of fun. I will say this, and I've said this, I think I used exactly the same term over on our construction content creators club a little while ago. I can, let me have a look because I do like to mention these things. As of this morning, my YouTube channel, which I happen to have open, has 80,237 subscribers. Big numbers. That's Wembley Stadium filled with my subscribers. Big deal. What does that actually mean? And the term that YouTubers use is it's a vanity metric. In other words, All it's measuring is just the number of people that have gone click on the subscribe button. The real measure of what I do is you. Is you, Steve. Is you, Dan. Is you, Jim. Is you, Al. Is you, Lou and Ken and Nick and Uncle Tom Copley and all. The fact that you turn up to watch this show is one of the reasons that our YouTube following is what it is. Because YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn, part of their algorithm watches what happens with your videos. If I put out a video that basically doesn't get a single like, gets very low views, isn't shared with anyone, YouTube will stop showing it to people. But the fact that this live show lands on YouTube, already having had dozens, sometimes hundreds of engagements, YouTube looks at that and goes, this guy's good. Let's show it to a few more people, who then subscribe. And once they've subscribed and they've come along and they've enjoyed it, they'll do it again. And as a result, you get more subscribers. That's what it is. And, you know, what do I gain out of this? Yes, we have sponsors. Yes, we have advertisers and everything else. But basically, we are here. I like to show the videos. I like to show the videos of the new products and everything else. But the real value of this show basically starts when the show ends. This bit. Everything else that goes before, you know, the old celebrity birthdays. Now it's the history of the world, part 1. All of the videos from the best manufacturers in the world, all of that's great. But the actual value of this show starts when the show stops. And when we hop over into the chat. I prefer the likes of Steve, Alana and Nigel, some of the other young guns, not been on machines long enough to know ins and outs. I take your point. And here's a conversation that I've had with both with Peter Haddock and with his son Lucas. Lucas interviewed me at ConExpo. I don't think it's come out yet, but when it does, I'll be sure to point you at it. If I have a criticism, and it is a tiny criticism, but if I have a criticism of what Lucas does at the moment, it's the fact that he's not being Lucas, he is being Peter's son. Now, he has been granted some awesome opportunities. While he was at ConExpo, he interviewed one of the most senior directors that Caterpillar had at the show. Fantastic opportunity. And I didn't get that opportunity, but that's a whole other story. So that's fine. And I think there is a lot to be said for taking that opportunity and doing it in a corporate style. But, and I've said this directly to Lucas, so I'm not telling tales out of school, where the value of him right now, I think he's 15 at the moment, his real value could have been and should have been at somewhere like Plantworx to walk up to a dump truck and literally go, I'm Lucas Haddock. Look at the size of this bloody thing. Talk like a 15-year-old. Yes, they won't have the experience, as Dan has rightly said. They will not know enough, but then their audience won't know enough. You are speaking the language of your audience. And if one 15-year-old were to watch Lucas Haddock at 15 years old saying, Christ, look at the size of this dump truck. How big is this excavator? That machine that you see behind me, that's 150 tons. If that one video made somebody male or female, watch that video and go, that's the job for me. I want a bit of that. I want to be sat behind the levers of a 150-ton machine. That, to my mind, really has value. And unfortunately, and it's a chicken and egg. A lot of brands now are very keen to work with influencers and content creators, and for that I should be forever grateful, because that's what pays my bills. But they're not willing to take a risk on somebody that doesn't have the big audience quite yet. Somebody like a Lucas Haddock, and a Lucas I'm sure is not unique, somebody like that can show a youngster construction as a youngster. That character, imagine me going to a school, a high school, standing up in front of a bunch of 15-year-olds and saying, oh, construction's marvellous and we have big diggers and it's fantastic. First of all, they're going to take one look at me and go, who's this old fart? If a 15-year-old went and did it and spoke the way that 15-year-olds speak, I don't know what that is anymore because I don't have any around me. But if they spoke the same language as a 15-year-old, you would get way more engagement. And as a result of that, we might actually start to bridge the skills gap. Keep whacking this. I'm not used to having a microphone up this high. But out of the 50k subscribers is in the UK, same on Facebook construction groups, 20k people on, but 215k in other countries. I don't have a problem with that. I do an Instagram live every once in a while. I have a guy that watches regularly from Papua New Guinea. I'm delighted by that. You know, and going back to ConExpo, don't forget I spoke to Ricky Webb of East Coast Demolition, and he was talking about the fact that he watches this show and he watches the UK demolition industry because he believes that we are leading the way. He looks to us as an example, but for influence, you know, and in his case, that influence was very much related to Oilquick. He saw what some of the big brands here, or the big demolition contractors, AR Demolition, Armac, what they were doing with Oilquick, and he literally, if that's good enough for the boys in Britain, that's good enough for me. That's what it's all about. Exactly my thoughts too, Mark. Be a teenager. Yeah, be a teenager. Listen, Steve, you know, given all that you know now about not just operating, but and I know your grandfather was a big influence on you. If you knew back then what you know now, if you were 15 years old and you had access to a GoPro and a digger, you would be bloody enormous by now. You would, and I do believe you would carry that audience with you. I think other 15-year-olds would be turned on by your presentation style and by your insight and everything else. But when you turn 25, I reckon most of those 25-year-olds would still be with you. If they had a genuine belief and passion in that industry, I think they would have come with you. Unfortunately, I mean, Steve, you have a considerable advantage over me. I came to this in my 50s. I was over the hill before I started. Steve Williamson, Ed Butler, Ollie Guns, Ben the Operator, they have a genuine opportunity to make a big difference, and that is where their influence lies. It will bring in more young ones to the industry, watching a teenage guy talking about what he thinks and thoughts of the machines. Think about it like this. If for example, I was up in Eskilstuna with a Volvo late last year, and I was basically handed the keys to a 100-ton dump truck. Now, I've seen 100-ton dump trucks dozens of times. Only ever driven a couple of them, but I've seen them dozens of times. And while the Volvo machine was very impressive, and it really is very impressive, it's great to look at, but I looked at that through jaded, experienced eyes. Imagine giving a 14 or a 15-year-old that same opportunity. And if the opening words out of their mouth was, holy shit, look at the size of that. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's the message we want to convey. Because that, if you took a video of a 15-year-old saying, holy shit, look at the size of that, and me, it's got a such and such engine, and it goes from 0 to 40 and so and so, and the driveline consists of this, and it carries a 100-ton payload. How bloody boring. Oh my God. I'd rather watch the bloody teenager just for that sheer enthusiasm. And there's another point, and I think this is, I'm not blowing smoke up his rear end, but I think there is one thing that a lot of the people that we've mentioned here bring to the party, these influencer types. And I will single out Ollie Guns, I will single out Ben the Operator, and I will single out specifically Steve Williamson. The thing that they bring, more than experience, although they have it, more than passion, although they have it, is enthusiasm. I was told when I first started, I used to work with a guy who was a former BBC cameraman, who told me that if you're going to be on camera, you need to be 150% of what you normally are. Now, normally I wouldn't say I'm quietly spoken, because I've always got something to say for myself. But when I come to this show, I've got the hands and I've got the enthusiasm. I'm talking like this. That's not me. I've usually got my hands in my pockets and I'm just mumbling under my breath. And that's what the likes of Steve Williamson brings. You cannot watch Ed and Steve demonstrating their machines and their tilt rotators without going, I'm kind of caught up in the excitement of this. This is fantastic. This is a good day out as far as I'm concerned. Let's have a look. I wish I'd started this 10 years ago. Yeah, imagine where you'd be. And again, that's one of the reasons, I adopted Twitter. I've been on Twitter for about 16 years. Adopted Facebook a bit later. Adopted YouTube a bit later still, although I've been on YouTube properly since about 2006, but only started taking it seriously about 3 years ago. But Instagram, when Instagram arrived, I was on it like a carb on it. I was on it straight away because I knew that I had missed all those opportunities over the years. And I've said this before. I actually told my son Fred that I reckoned if I got 20,000 followers on Instagram, I would conquer the world. I would be the biggest in the entire world on Instagram for the demolition market. We're at 150,000 now, which goes to show A, fantastic reach, and B, I know nothing. There's a huge appetite for this stuff out there. Really got to get organised and get on this YouTube crack. I will say this to you, Jim, and I will say this to anybody else that cares to listen. I've mentioned this to the guys in the Construction Content Creators Club. There is a guy that my son introduced me to who runs basically his job is kind of landscaping, but he makes a lot of drives for houses, and he drives a skid steer, and he's got a GoPro, and he goes to work and he puts the GoPro behind his head and it films over his shoulder. Halfway through the day he moves it so that it's looking at him, and then just to round things off, he has it facing out looking at the job that he's doing, and he does that day in, day out, and he uploads that to YouTube. There is no editing taking place. It's just raw video of a bloke going about his daily grind. He's got millions of viewers. He is making a bloody fortune out of it. And if you're an operator, as Jim, you operate, Steve, you operate, do it. Don't even worry about the editing. There is a real appetite for going along with people, really going along with people and experiencing their daily life. I'd like to do YouTube, but feel I've so much at the moment. Another platform is just more to do. I'll do YouTube, but not anytime soon, I don't think. Never too soon, but also never too late. YouTube is going nowhere. Second biggest search engine in the world, but I do think if I could wave a magic wand and give you another couple of hours in the day, Steve, I would strongly recommend that you had a YouTube channel that was basically how to use a tilt rotator. So, how to set it up, how to control it, how to maintain it, how to grease it. Dozens and dozens of videos on all of that. You would be the go-to resource, because obviously all the manufacturers are looking to sell their equipment. Encon will be talking about the benefits of Encon and so on down the line. If you were to do an independent view of how to install, how to care for, how to maintain, how to repair a tilt rotator, you would have people queuing at your door. Swedish earth mover lad is now in the hands of Dan. That is Norwegian earth mover. My mate Martin. Good luck to him. I mean, listen, I'm not going to tell tales out of school. Dan is Dan Smith, ex-JCB. He is an agent working on behalf of a bunch of influencers. I realise, he's doing a great job. I don't actually see the benefit of having Martin on. Martin is one of the nicest people you could ever wish to meet, but the guy's a paramedic. So A, he's not an actual operator, going back to Dan Cullen's point of view, and B, he spends most of his time in an ambulance, not behind the wheels of a digger. So whereas somebody like an Amy Underwood, Plantworx is coming up, let's get Amy there for 3 days or whatever, or to Conexpo or whatever it might be, there's no way that Martin's going to be able to do that. So I'm not seeing the benefit personally. I bought a GoPro, and next week I'll be doing a few vids. Look forward to seeing them, Dan. Please be sure to share them. Sorry, my mistake was speaking to him last night. Funnily enough, so was I. And there we are. Steve Williamson. Not sure what those symbols are. I'm not even sure if I put my glasses on I'll be able to tell, but yes. Right, people, I'm going to have to love you and leave you because I need to get my wife over to my daughter's house. I'll be back here tomorrow. I have to say, tomorrow afternoon's construction equipment news show is looking increasingly shaky, I may pull the plug on it and worry about it when I get back, because as it stands this morning, I have no new equipment to tell you about. I think those that weren't launched at ConExpo and Bauma are probably now waiting for Plantworx, possibly, if they're UK based. So there is currently a bit of a dearth. There's a gap in new equipment for me to shout about. So I may pull the plug on tomorrow's show. But I'll keep you posted. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic day. Thank you for all your insight. Thank you ever so much for giving Rob Oliver such a warm welcome. Obviously, thanks to Rob himself, and thanks to Angela and Lou over at Plantworx. Look forward to catching up with all of them when I see them, and look forward to catching up with some of you at Plantworx. I'll be easy to spot. I'll look like this bloke. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic day. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Till then, all the best.